So, hello, welcome, guys. Today we're talking to Etienne Garbugli. Hopefully, I didn't butcher that name. He works at the intersection of technology, product design, and marketing. Two-time startup founder, four-time entrepreneur, and UX research expert. The reason I wanted him on here, though, is because he published this book called Lean B2B: Build Products Businesses Want. It goes over the Lean B2B methodology and helps entrepreneurs around the world build successful businesses. So, Etienne, thanks for being on.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Cool. I'd love to hear how you're going over how you're using Lean B2B now. So what is the initial step? Like, can we get like a high level, like step by step? Like, how can a startup founder use Lean B2B to build or expand a new product category?
Yeah. So basically, Lean B2B was written. I figured like there was enough difficulty, enough challenges to go from just the initial idea to product market fit. So in B2B, this often takes like 18 months or more, sometimes depending on the kind of startup that you're building. And that is a very significant achievement, being able to get that initial product market fit and be able to scale from there. So the approach is one that actually needs to be repeated every time you're going to need to put a new product in place. So anytime you're going to decide that you're going to be expanding your product arsenal, so like have different products for your company, or just the initial product. So one of the things I've been really researching in the last year or so is the metric of like time to product market fit. So how do you speed up that initial product market fit? Because you start your business and money is already going down. So your runway is already being depleted. So how do you get faster to that initial product market fit? And if you're an established entrepreneur as well, how do you keep your focus while you're building other products for your customers or for a different customer set?
So this seems relevant to the sales cycle too, because some businesses, they have the buy button on their site and it's just a monthly recurring SaaS model. Other businesses, like they approach it and they have to go through this whole proposal process. And it's a very customized service. So it seems like you could use B2B or Lean B2B to figure out, which one of those would be better too.
Definitely. There's a big part of the book that was taught in that idea. So how do you speed up your cycle to be able to get insights faster? But also, how do you find a way to get maximum validation as quickly as possible? So one of the great ideas that came up from entrepreneurs that I was speaking with is the idea of building a customer development panel. So having your group of corporations you're working with to be able to validate your product. So it just speeds up your cycle because you're able to have like these meaningful and honest discussions with a group of customers, instead of like always being on thing and trying to find new customers and then validate and then go through that process. So just little things like that allow you to be faster and be more I guess get to product market fit faster.
Right. Okay. So the first step is identifying a business problem, right?
The first step is figuring out what you want to do. Because there's actually different starting points. Obviously, some people have ideas, other people don't have ideas, other people have a project that is already in place. But if you're starting from scratch, that would be the first step. And understanding if there's a market, what are your key hypotheses as you're starting your business.
So I'd love to hear your opinion on, do you think Lean B2B, first, do you think it's effective for this? So let's say there's a company that's like hitting a plateau. So for instance, I'm working with this mobile development shop and we're bringing in, I think, about 40 leads a month inbound, and we're trying to get to 100 leads a month. So we're using sort of some lean concepts to validate different channels. And actually, we're doing this at Inspire Beats too.
Yeah.
Have you used Lean B2B in that way? Like expanding or improving current channels?
Yeah. I think there's a great book that was written, that was published recently called Traction, where they go in detail how you test those different channels. It's really interesting because you can learn a lot with a very small investment, and the channel you touch would be profitable is not always the one that turns out to be the most profitable for your business. So basically, it's part of the validation to be able to understand what the right channel is. Because if you don't get distribution, you're gonna have a hard time even getting enough speed, enough momentum to get your business off the ground or get your new product off the ground.
Right. Okay, so what's that next step? So let's say somebody, they have the business, right? They've got a little bit of a market, a little bit of an idea. Maybe they've got 4 or 5 retainer clients already.
Yeah.
And now they want to actually create a product that can scale.
Yeah.
So what's that next step now that they've found the business problem or they know what they want to do?
So a new product, and they have an established product already?
Yeah, a new product, and they've got some customers. They've got an established product already.
Yeah. Well, that's definitely a really interesting approach because it's cheaper to retain customers than it is to acquire new customers, and it's also a great way to increase your average revenue per user and increase your retention and add value to your product as well. So the more value your product has, the more people will be willing to stay, and the more people will be willing to pay for. The challenge there is if you're building a new product, you need to ask yourself what's the cost on my company's focus, and what's because every product that you build will also need to be supported. So there's a cost on distraction on that side for this. So the idea, there's different ways to approach this. So the idea is to stay close to your customers, to understand who are your best customer, who are the customers you really want to expand on. So there's different approaches to this. So you can either if you really have an idea of who your persona, like the key persona, the key profile of customers that you're seeking is, and you have a quantification of maybe their revenue potential, what else is available as far as budget, what are their needs, or what are their current challenges, that could be a good starting point. Personally, in the startup I'm currently in, we segmented our top 1% user, top 10% users, and it gives you different perspectives. You can also look at it from people that have budget but end up churning your product. So why are they churning? So if they're canceling their account to your product, it probably tells you about unmet needs. It probably tells you about something that's not completely fulfilled as an objective. There's also a lot of stuff. You could look at data and what's really being used. So you could branch off parts of your product that might be really interesting for another segment. So you might be able to tackle a new market with a subset of your features. It's really a matter of starting with one customer segment that you feel is valuable, especially if you have that benefit of having already an established product, when you can tell who's going to have some synergy with whatever you're building. And I was looking at a few examples before this call. A few really interesting companies. I don't know if you're familiar with Atlassian. Yeah, so they have a super good platform with, and the product basically expands itself. So it's all organic growth because they have products that have natural synergies between them. Intercom is the same thing. Like we started using Intercom with one package, and now we're using 3 out of 4 of their package because it's the same customer. So the new products that you're building have to capitalize on your strengths, what you already have as far as your user base. Otherwise, you're going to be creating distraction if you're building a new product that will not be targeted at the same audience or will not be targeted at the same segment. A good example of that is 37 Signals, which became Basecamp because of that, in big part because they were losing focus because they had products that were selling to different markets, different marketing, different positioning, and didn't always have the same synergy. So having a product that's a CRM and having a product that's a product management tool does not always sell to the same users. It's really important to understand that you're trying to expand on what you have, expand on your strengths, expand on the product you have in place to fulfill the needs of ideally a really valuable customer set that you have.
Okay, so we have this one client called Good Audience, and they do social media management, where basically you go to the site and you buy social media posts. Like I think it's like 600 posts a month or something.
Okay.
So that's their only product right now. So let's say they wanted to expand and they wanted to add more products. You're saying figure out who their customers are, right? Like they already have a bunch of customers, so go back, survey or review their So what's your mindset on that? How do you determine which of your customers are the most profitable to go after?
So I can tell you what we did with the current company I'm at. So initially started with a set of interviews because you need to define what kind of people are using your product. So it's a good idea to just get these high-level personas. And then it gives you at least a guideline of where to explore. And so you're seeing patterns. Ideally, you connect the the qualitative and the quantitative data. So you're looking at what people do, how they use the product, how they think about the product, the value of the product, and you connect that with the revenue they generate for you, the engagement, the usage, and all that. So you're able to get a scoring grid a little bit. So you're able to define what your criteria are for a customer value score. So look, which customer is more valuable for you, and based on that, you can establish some processes like we did. So we established processes to be able to track the new customers that fit the same profile, and we track average revenue per customer. We track acquisition channel, cost of acquisition for these types of users. So you're able to really get to a really granular perspective of which customers are costing you less, getting more value, we're more willing to share. So I think the key components we're using is revenue, so their ability to share. So I have a few elements in the book in Lean B2B. So there's different ways of being able to assess the value of customers, and ultimately you need to define your own. But typical ways are just frequency. Like there's a lot of our customers that have the same request, which is not a really good way because they might not be really high quality customers. Just one of the best predictor of it being really an interesting type of customer set is their pain level. So how painful is the problem how painful are they're experiencing some of the problems that you could be tackling. So how painful is social media to them? How painful is that issue set? How much money do they have? What kind of impact could you have to their reality? And how much education will be required if you're to work with them? Like it will take you like a 2-year sales cycle to be able to get them to understand the value of social media and all these things, or will it take like 2 days, so the speed to be able to get them up to speed?
Oh, that's really interesting. Okay, so let's say they went through this exercise and they analyzed the customers. So maybe they have 3 customer segments, right? And it normally breaks into these 3, right? There's SMB, so medium-sized businesses, maybe mom and pops or companies that are around 50 heads. Enterprise companies, so very large organizations with marketing teams that are just using them to outsource. And then you've got funded startups, similar to the target of this podcast. Maybe you've raised and then you don't want to actually do the management yourself, so you're outsourcing it to a firm that way.
Yeah.
So you would take those and you'd ask those.
I would actually go even more granular. So like branch that out. So there may be sub segments in these that are really interesting, and you're looking for these unique triggers. Like what's going to allow you to be able to really understand their reality, really understand how to speak to them, and how to expand on their specific needs. So from there, you can start having meaningful discussion with that segment you identify. So say you decided you were going to go with SMBs. You would organize different interviews with these people. So since you're looking for expansion opportunities, there's 2 different things you might want to do in that direction. So it's either try to have a product that can be sold to the same audience, but as well a product that will get you a little bit of a different audience as well. So you're trying to expand the reach of your product. So it's good to be able to truly understand the context of these users. So if you get a chance to have interviews with them, so you're asking questions about more generally about how they do things, about how their process are. So it's always good to go one level up. So if you're talking about social media specifically, so tell me how you communicate with customers nowadays. And then you're going to get all the synergy between their different channels, and you let them talk, and you can actually understand their current processes, what's broken, what elements they're touching, what are different interactions between all their different things. You can also ask specific questions about if there's anything they do before or after using your product, or before or after using another product. So you can also do competitive analysis in that sense. You can add them. Sorry?
That's interesting. So you start talking to the SMBs, and then maybe when you're talking about marketing or communications in general, maybe customer success comes up, or like inbound marketing in general comes up, or blog posting or other things like that.
Exactly. So you can start understanding the synergies between what you currently offer, and what other tools are out there. We work with a tool called Amplitude. I'm not trying to plug the tool or anything like that, but that's actually how they build their tool. They were targeting customers of Mixpanel. So basically, they did interviews. They figured out what was wrong with the other tool, and they built the missing features from the other tool. So that's one way of doing it. If you see like there might be an opportunity, you could also target another company's customers, and that way. You can ask as well, like to understand the full process, how people go about, I don't know, publishing on social media. What's their process? Who are they interacting with? So if you're expanding in different roles, if you want to have work with other teams that are intersecting with the team, the stakeholders you're selling to, that's another way of doing it.
Are there any questions that come up to define like if it's the same decision maker? So let's say at an SMB, maybe there's one guy who runs marketing and he's running social media, but you find out that a lot of the customer success team could also use something like Good Audience.
Yeah.
How does that come up when you've done Lean B2B? How do you navigate that?
Yeah. So in that flow, like this question, like, so can you walk me through the process of that process, like, so publishing on social media, and the person will often mention, well, I do this, and then the copywriter needs to validate this, and then that person does this. So you're starting to establish a little bit the ecosystem around what the main offering, and you can slowly expand into this. So and you can dig into this specifically. So if you know, what are they using? What are the copywriters using for this work specifically? Are they getting their content validated? So you can start getting that perspective, and you can get a little bit of a map of all the stakeholders that might be relevant in this. You can also ask directly, like what's what kind of, like, what was the experience like the last time you were able to get the new software purchase for your company? So basically, that person will tell you if they have that ability to get budget or the ability to get money to buy new solutions, and they might refer to other people. So I would need to go to my boss. I can only approve a $20 purchase and not $1,000 a month purchase.
Right. Have you ever seen this go horribly wrong? Like a company tries Lean B2B and then they expand like way too far past what they're trying to do?
Yeah. Well, feature creep is like one of the really dangerous parts of this. I don't know if I've seen it specifically from people that have read Lean B2B, but it is one of the key issues for startup. Like, be able to keep your focus and make sure that you keep your essence as you're expanding your product or your feature set is really important. You don't want to be building a bloated product that tries to meet the needs of everybody, but does not really fully capture that.
Right. Okay. So interviewed customers.
Yeah.
Customers are done.
Yeah.
A good example of, I think, the next step, or actually, what's the next step after the interview? So you have the problem done.
I actually think that there's two facets to this. So one is understanding the context. So how else are people interacting? But also understanding whether these same users have different needs, different elements that we're not really fixing. Because if you're selling to the same people, it's easier to expand on your current offering because you have the trust, you have the relationship, you have everything in place. So a couple questions to ask for this is like, how will the person you're interacting with be evaluated this year? So what are their objectives, work objectives? So if you're not working on their main business objective, that could be a challenge. Or if you're not, if there's another opportunity that's related to one of their key objectives, it might be easier for you to expand in that direction. So like, what if I was to find a solution for that problem for you? So there's that trust in place, and you can slowly find a way to be able to get that relationship in place.
Right. So you go in, for instance, selling social media, but it might be number of inbound leads might be the real pain point. They just need more leads in the door.
Yeah, exactly. So that's also relates to the question we were asking before. So if you go more broad, more wide with your initial questioning, you might be able to understand that pain point better. So it's the same thing, like asking, like, what keeps you up at night? What would be the first thing you would change about the product we've built, or what would be the first thing that's missing in your work? Asking, going to those challenges, understanding their problems, understanding the series of problems that they have. So just to better flesh out those profiles and understand a little better what other value you could bring to them, and are you working on the biggest value for them? Because there might be another bigger opportunity for you if you're selling to these customers.
Right. So anytime you're launching a new product, especially if you've got customers that are paying you all the time,
Yeah.
there's always that risk that the new product you launch like doesn't live up to the standard, or it breaks, or it's failing. Like, how do you deal with that pushback?
Yeah, that's a great
If
question.
you,
So one great way, and I think it's good to have a foot in the door because it's all based on relationship and trust. So if you're able to frame it and say, okay, this is a pilot, like it might not completely work out. So you set the right expectation with the potential buyers or the people that will be testing the software. So you don't over deliver, don't oversell it, and you make them understand. You're making them understand that they're a partner in the creation or the expansion of that product. For example, like everybody likes to be like known as an early adopter of a product and be able to feel special that, oh, I was part in the creation of that product, because they're able to customize the experience. They might be able to get their feature request in. They might be able to get all that those elements that will truly help them improve their workflow.
so do you have to discount, or what are your tips for actually getting them to buy into that?
Yeah. I think you definitely need to ask for money. Otherwise, you're not going to get a true validation. Discounting is not necessarily a good thing because you're diluting the value of the what you're selling, and it's not necessarily a good start. So if you are to discount, you might it's better to do, okay, so I'm going to give you 3 months free, and then you will so it's basically a discount, but you frame it differently, and then you accept to that price afterwards. So you lock in with the contract a little bit in that way. You definitely want to have money changing hands because that's a better validation, and you ideally want to be capturing as much money as possible early on. I understand that, like it tends to be a little bit difficult for entrepreneurs to actually ask for money for a product that's unfinished or that's like that, but large companies do it as well. It's been done like that forever. So there's you can definitely do that. So you can ask for the price up front, and you give clear deliverables. So we're going to deliver the full version on this date, and you have to meet your deadlines that you establish. So if you have you want to demonstrate that you're a credible and you're a reputable company, and you want to demonstrate that you're going to be delivering on value that is expected.
So how do you deal with failed tests? So we just launched a new product using the similar concept. We set up a landing page. We pitched it to a bunch of startups. We signed about, I think, 4 or 5 on a monthly contract.
Okay.
Our goal was to hit 10,
Okay.
and we just didn't see the traction that we needed. So
Okay.
now we're discontinuing the product. Do you have any tips for,
Okay.
like, let's say a Lean B2B test fails.
Yeah.
You want to keep those customers, right? Because they're the current,
Yeah.
they're already working with you. They're good customers. They're paying. How do you transition them onto other products, or what do you do with those guys?
So why is it why didn't you get the traction you were looking for?
So people were buying it. The problem wasn't actually on the sales side; it's on the product side.
Okay.
So it was so we do lead generation and outbound sales as a managed service. But what we were launching was a new product for agencies where instead of doing managed lead gen for them, what we do is find a bunch of leads online where people were posting what projects they wanted, like on Elance and on other sites, and then send them out to them for a fee every month.
Okay.
So that was selling, that was fine, but the quality of the projects wasn't high, and like people weren't getting their ROI. They weren't getting solid ROI from the product. So
Okay.
we had to discontinue it.
Okay. Well, it sounds like the need is there, so the problem is there. The problem is validated. The way to get the customer is there. So like it's probably more a pivot of product or a pivot of solution in that case. So you can approach the solution aspect differently, or you could because you already know that these customers, these 4 companies have that problem, and you were already able to, like, so you should probably look either. Is there a way to approach the same problem differently?
Yeah. So the way that we were doing it was, so a lot of agencies come to us for lead generation. And the problem with agencies is a lot of the times they don't understand like the full sales process. And it's different from SaaS a lot of the times, right?
Yeah.
There's no buy button. It's very custom. So they have a hard time either managing the lead gen program, or we send them too many projects and then they end up overstaffed and they have scaling issues, so they have to pause it for a while.
Okay.
So we were hoping when we launched this new one, they could just take the projects as they need them and just keep going. So that was the problem we were trying to solve internally.
Okay.
And then for them, we were trying to give them as many projects as they could without having them break.
Okay.
Scaling wise.
And was that aspect value? Like did they see that value? Did they see the like, was that really their problem?
Yeah, so they saw enough value to pay for it. Their main question when I was doing this is awesome, by the way, that we're going into this. The main question that I was getting from them was, are the leads any good, right? So I had to convince them, do all the sales stuff to get them to pay, and I was like, yeah, of course the leads are good. If they're not, we'll refund and do all that stuff. But the list, since we were testing it, and I was really open about it being a test and how there were just a few on there, the leads, they weren't that good because it was, they were just random leads from the web. We thought they'd be good, when we checked them, but it didn't scale.
Okay. What is there? So is there a way to do that piece of process like manually and then see what's missing from your current offering? Like, could you do like full on like concierge mode and like go like and do everything manually and then see what comes out of like? Are you able to generate value if you do everything manually?
Oh, that's interesting. So yeah, maybe way fewer leads,
but like higher quality, maybe.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Because we have a company in Montreal. They started like they were trying to do like that marketplace like really really wide open, and then they realized, I think along the same line, that the value of the candidates they were getting was not that high. So they became a really exclusive community. So I don't know if that would be relevant to this, but like, it's by really understanding what is valuable that you might be able to have a more precise tool, precise process that you could automate afterwards.
That's interesting, yeah. Because our main service was fully managed lead generation. So maybe it's even a play on that. Maybe a half price offering on the full. So instead of the full managed lead generation, maybe it's like lead generation for agencies where we go out and we do the full thing that we'd normally be doing, but we're sharing the leads maybe with like 4 or 5 agencies instead of passing it on to a list of a whole group of people.
And potentially you could charge more for this.
Yeah, exactly.
It's more exclusive.
I'm glad to talk this out with you. This has been something we've been kicking around because we've been trying. We have the startup industry basically. Good. Our lead generation works very well for software as a service products. 70% of our clients are startups. 20% of our clients are digital agencies. But they were running into this issue of scale. So now we're trying to jump into new industries, and we're using Lean B2B principles in a similar way.
Right.
What's your advice actually there? So on that initial pitch, let's say not current customers. Let's say you have a base of customers. You've got a product that's working. For instance, for us, it's lead generation. How do you test that in new verticals? So like, let's say we were going after commercial real estate, which was something that we hadn't done at all before. So how do you jump into a new vertical like that?
And how do you define that real estate might be interesting?
So commercial real estate, it's basically real estate agents. We were just targeting ones based in San Francisco that are targeting other startups and basically moving startups to offices. So like, when a startup raises a Series B funding, all of a sudden they have like 50 million in the bank, so they want a really fancy office. So we would basically find those startups for the real estate agents and introduce the two.
Okay. Well, so I think that's kind of like, so you need to regress to that step where you're trying to define which segment is the best. In this case, you have a framework that you use to assess like that this was probably a really key target. So once you're starting from that target, it's the reality is like when you're doing a startup and you're expanding your product, or you're expanding in a different market or different vertical or different segment or anything like that, you always need to do product market fit validation. So product market fit is actually not one step where it ends and everything is perfect and then you're good to go. It's endless. So basically you need to do customer development as well within that segment, because you might be launching the same product in a different segment, but end up getting 3 times more churn, or 3 times less revenue, or 3 times less sales. So sometimes it's just the the way you communicate the value, or sometimes it's more core. So there might be features that are missing specifically for that segment. So you need to it gives you that initial product that you can start with, and you can validate. You can do that easy solution validation, so you can get customers to use the product and see what comes out of that, and look at the feedback. So that's easier, but then you can look at the gaps. So basically, you have a benchmark with another industry, and you can see what's the gap.
How do you choose those markets, though? So, for instance, for lead generation, like we could go after anyone, really.
Yeah.
Like we've been selling to solar panel people. One person just contacted us and wants us to fill their class, like their online class with people. You know, there's startups. Like there are so many verticals. So how does a company choose which of the nearly unlimited markets to go for? Because even for social media, it would be the same.
Yeah.
Like they could go after any B2B.
Yeah, it's a little bit of the challenge of starting with a solution, or having a solution to start with, because after that you're trying to find which solution that is, or who has the problem that this solves. So it's in a lot of ways it's a little bit backward. It's starting from technology, going to the people. So it's actually harder, and it takes more time, because you need to figure out, like, you need to explore different customer sets to really get a proper answer, because it can be actually very time consuming if you go in the wrong segment. So one thing we did, I was helping an entrepreneur last year. They had a solution, but they didn't know what market specifically to go in. So we started with basically a big spreadsheet with all of the criteria they were looking for. So like buy fast, they would be experiencing the pain, they would have budget to purchase, they would be basically there's a large enough population on that target. And we narrowed it down to 5 different segments, I think. And we started doing interviews with several customers, several potential prospects in these segments, and just try to look at where's the most money available, and who would see the greater pain, because the reality is pain is the greatest predictor of future behavior. So if I have a problem that's really painful to me, I'm always going to try and solve it. Or I'm always going to want it fixed. So those are 2 key aspects. So like a big pain and a big budget was how we were looking at it mostly. So we out of 5, we ended up going to one different one vertical that we explored. And then within that vertical, we ended up finding different segments, and within those segments, but this is like a 6 months process, like where you go through, you start with like a big funnel, and you narrow down. So it's way better if you can actually start from either a really strong hypothesis, or have already customers where you can tell these guys have that emerging needs, or these guys are not in our industry, but they still signed up for a tool, and they got value.
Okay, so the way that you'd recommend we do it is the random inbound leads that we get, the weird ones, like the people trying to book out their classes, or the solar panel guys, or things like that. Take those and use those as initial inroads to see if we can expand and take over each of those markets using the same concept.
Well, there's a story I really love that I put in the book. It's a Swedish startup called Spotfire. And they basically started from a solution. They had this visualizations platform for a complex data set, and they didn't know which market to go in. And they ended up going pharma, and from there they stopped. Like they were actually not looking at anything they received from other industry. But when came time to expand in a different market, they still had all these leads, or these contacts, where they could just like take a step back. Okay, this came back like 20 times. These companies are interesting for this, so you can actually. You're still keeping one ear open, but like it doesn't need to be like you should probably there's value in people reaching out to your product. So the early adopters, innovators, and all that, like they might see value in a tool that is not catered to them, and they will help guide you in a direction that might be interesting for your startup.
That's perfect. Okay, we're getting pretty close to time here. Any final takeaways or anything you wanna leave the user with?
Yeah, for sure. So it's interesting because when you're looking at like expanding the product, there's like a return to the best product winning in markets. So you're looking at like I mentioned earlier, like Atlassian and Intercom. They have very very little like sales force. So they're mostly their sales force is only for enterprise clients. So it's by having that platform that like having multiple products that cater to needs of the same buyers, the same types of customers, allows them to grow organically and really have that growth that's really that really is valuable for their corporation, their organization. So investing in the product actually allows you to be able to provide more value to your customer and be able to grow your product, to grow your customer base. So I think that if you are to be able to, if you're to launch a new product for your current customers, that might be something to think about. That if you expand by investing in the product, by investing in the value that you provide your customers, you can truly expand and grow organically from there. And that's probably where a lot of the future startup successes will be in SaaS.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Where can people find you online?
Lean B2B book.com. So there's my blog on there. I'm on Twitter as well. There's a Lean B2B community. I'm also on Twitter myself as well. You can reach out as well by email or anything like that. Always open to discussion.
Awesome. Thanks for being on.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me.
And listeners, if you need targeted leads for your startup agency or even, solar panel leads, any sort of weird business, go over to inspirebeats.com. We do targeted lead generation and outreach. Thanks.
Great.